We work together in many committees. Working with her is very easy because she is the very first person to understand what I say from the point of view of library. And I must add that she is so generous. Whenever she receives complimentary copies of books for the review work that she does with reputed publishers, she always offers them to the library. She asked me to select whatever the titles needed for the library from any subject field, not confined only to her subject area. That's why I said that she has superordinary qualities. With that, I'll move on to the proper citation. Professor Metika Suhashini Vitanage is an esteemed professor and founding director of the Ecosphere Resilience Research Center at the University of Sri Jawadanapura, Sri Lanka. Her pioneering vision has propelled her to the forefront of global scholarship. Professor Vitanage's influence extends far beyond her home institution, as evidenced by her roles as an adjunct professor at the Institute of Agriculture, University of Western Australia, Sustainability Cluster, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, India, and the National Institute of Fundamental Studies, Sri Lanka. Recently appointed as an eminent visiting scientist at the Savita Institute of Medical and Technical Sciences, India. She continues to illuminate pathways for innovative research and collaboration. With a multifaceted academic background spanning water chemistry, environmental remediation, microplastics, and waste biomass conversion, Professor Vitanage has earned international acclaim for her groundbreaking contributions. Recognized as a highly cited researcher by Clarivet, she epitomizes excellence, ranking within the top 0.1% of highly cited scientists. 0.1% of highly cited scientists globally. Professor Vitanage's awards, including the prestigious Faiza M. Al-Kharafi Award from TWAS, the World Academy of Science in 2020, attest to her unwavering commitment to scientific excellence. With a prolific publication record comprising over 275 SCI Index journal articles, 275 SCI Index journal articles, 60 book chapters, and 10 co-edited books published. Professor Vitanage's citation record exceeding 26,000 with an H index of 80, reflects the profound impact of her research on global discourse and practice. With that, I'll invite Professor Metika Vitanage to share her experience with us on crafting impactful review articles, tips, pitfalls, and trends. Over to Professor Vitanage.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nayana, and thank you very much for the invitation given by the University Library Association to conduct the lecture today. And specifically, I would like to thank President Dr. Maharufa, as well as the librarian and the staff of the Library of University of Sri Jawadanapura. May I get the permission to share my slides, please? Okay, thank you. Right. So it's actually a great honor to have a discussion and kind of a talk with the Library Association, where I have never given a lecture before. So this is actually, I think it is good for many students, many professionals, not only in the library sector, not only in the science sector, but also in the other sectors, like, because it's not only the science that lives in this world. It's always science go with the other subjects. So we really need to actually recognize them. Almost all these subjects I personally consider as part of science. So library is called a library sciences. That is because it is another type of a science. So it's really a great honor to have this lectures today. So we will be discussing about the impactful research articles, how to write them, what are the tips that you must follow, what kind of pitfalls we have, and the trends that we are having with regard to writing review articles, writing impactful review articles. Review articles, anybody would be able to write, but it should be impactful. So we will be discussing today, how do we write an impactful review article. So moving into before the talk starts, I think I should mention about the credential that I have with regard to review articles, so that it is easy for me to, easy for you also to understand whether that I have enough capacity, capability for me to deliver this to you. Here I should mention that my the number of review articles that I have written is about 73. So that is one, let's say, one kind of secret that I have this many citations. So we write reviews because it is being read by a vast number of audience, so that the number of citations that you will get will be higher. Apart from the number of reviews, I would like to mention about the editorial capacities that I have. I'm being an associate editor of Environmental Pollution Journal and Groundwater for Sustainable Development Journal. Those two journals have environmental pollution is having an impact factor of over 7, whereas groundwater sustainable development has an impact factor over 5. And then I'm in the editorial board of the Environmental Geochemistry and Health, Soils and Sediments and Environmental Advances. So that particular editor role is very important when I deliver lectures to an audience, especially with regard to scientific writing. Why? Our papers are going into the editors first, and they scan the paper, they go through the paper, they select whether it is to be gone to the reviewers or not, right? So editor's perspective, editor's vision, or the way editors behave is also very important when this kind of scientific writing lecture is being delivered. So I have seen many people doing scientific writing lectures, but you need to select whoever to listen to, depending on the caliber of the person. Otherwise, you will be having some maybe unnecessary information, maybe unwanted information or so on. And then with the SciVal credentials that I have, about 186 documents that I have authored have been, in the top 20% most cited documents in the worldwide. So more than 70% of my articles that I have written, I have authored, are in the top 25 most cited documents in the world. And similarly, more than 80% of my articles that I have co-authored or authored are in the top 25% journals. So I would like to see the audience, at least one of you, reaching this level, because this is very important for a nation to show the potential of the the capacity of the scientists in the country as well. So that is very important. So with that, I will drive you through the lecture today on review article writing. A person has told this kind of a segment saying, I not only use all the brains that, but all that I can borrow. So it is mentioning that you can do research alone, but it is never done in isolation because it should go into the public, right? So it is being published, right? So the production of new knowledge is fundamentally depend on the past knowledge. So what I borrow from the other researchers in the past, what they have done, what kind of research gaps they have identified, what kind of innovations that they have done. So depending on all these things, I generate my own thinking, right? So all what I do right now fundamentally depends on the past knowledge. So that is why we always do a literature review when we do a research for our master's, PhD, bachelor's, or whatever, right? For our thesis, we have a separate chapter called literature review, because that the knowledge or that the know-how that you are talking about today depends on the know-how in the past, right? So the past is very important. What have been done in the past is very important. So why do really need a literature review or, a review article? Before you go into review article, you need to do the literature review, right? So why do you need a literature review? Especially if you are starting your research, you really need to establish the terms and context, right? Otherwise, you will not know how to define what you are looking at or what are their limits, right? If you are starting a research, you really need to define the boundary of your research. And you need to define the what exactly it is, right? And then you are presenting a survey of preceding literature on the topic. How else you will know what has been done already? So if you don't know what has been done already, you will not be able to do a good research. Why? Because from a research, you always trying to find new knowledge, right? To generate new knowledge, you need to understand the gap in science. The gap in science. If you don't know the gap, then you won't be able to do a research, right? Because you are doing a research to generate new know-how, new knowledge, closing a gap. right? So identifying the gap is very important, right? So that we do by reviewing the literature in the past. Otherwise, we never know how to, what has been done already, right? And then, by doing a literature review, you would understand what kind of problems or have similar kind of problems been undertaken or solved by other researchers, right? How else will you know? Will you select an appropriate methodology or approach, right? So you now you know about the gap. What is the existing gap in research, right? In your subject area. But how to close that gap? What can be done? How to approach? So this is the methodology, right? So you don't know about the methodology to solve that particular problem if you don't do a literature search. So by doing a literature search, you would understand the pathway the other researchers have been taken to solve similar kind of a problem, right? So if we have somebody who has done a similar kind of solution has been brought up for a similar kind of problem, then we can adjust that methodology a little bit and make it suitable to close the gap of our own, research, right? And then you will have you might be working on perspectives, debates, right? So these relationships you need to understand, right? Where they are coming from, how they have originated. So the history, the past is very important, right? And the quality and the relevance of the literature is also very important. So when you do a literature review, you will understand, you will evaluate the quality of the literature that has been done, right? So whenever you are reading some papers for your literature review, you would understand, some of the articles that has been published are not really standard looking, they have been published in, very low quality journals, right? And some of them are in very high impact journals and they have received a lot of citations. So this quality you would understand by reading, by going through the literature, right? So these are some of the examples that I wanted to give you why you are writing a literature review. Okay. So a review paper is, that gives sufficient in-depth interpretations and synthesis of published work, right? Remember the terms called interpretation and synthesis, right? So it is not just reporting, right? A review paper is not just mere reporting of published work. You need to interpret what they have found, whether those are, believable, those have, they have taken a better methodology, and have they done a good, data analysis, right? And then you can compare and contrast published work. Vitanagi et al. Has done this kind of a research and they have found this number of pollutants in water. However, so the term however, Rajapaksha et al. Has only found 10 emerging contaminants in water. So what is being done here? Compare and contrast. So when you compare and, when you do contrasting between or among the paper that has been published already, then you are synthesizing new knowledge. And you can compare the data that has been already published, right? And compare them in a graph. So you are synthesizing new data based on the previously published data. So remember this forever. In a review paper, do not merely report what others have found, right? Try to compare them, try to contrast their data or findings, interpret the findings, and synthesize new data based on the published work, right? So a review paper must have all these things for the editor to consider it to be a good one and to pass that to reviewers, right? As an example, there are so many different types of reviews, and there's a one type called systematic reviews. We know that about 22 new systematic reviews are published every day. So think about the competition, right? Think about the competition that you are giving with your manuscript to the editor, right? So if you pass that competition only, that the editor will consider your paper to be sent it to the reviewers. So you really need to think and do a wonderful job. Otherwise, the review will be rejected, right? So the popularity of the review articles are with graduate students mainly because they are the people who are trying to find new things or trying to solve their own problem, so that by reading a review article, they can gather a lot of knowledge. Because in a review article, they have not only reported the previously published data, that they have compared, they have contrasted, they have synthesized new things based on the previous data, right? And practitioners and people who are changing their research areas, like me. Being an environmental scientist, you can't rely on one particular environmental pollutant, right? So previously, I was working on groundwater chemistry, right? But groundwater chemistry, it's not really evolving. Then I moved my research towards biochar, okay? Carbon, right? Research. So carbon research is also now being saturated. So now I'm moving my research towards microplastic. So whenever I try to move my research areas from one to another, I need to learn new things. So I read a lot of reviews so that it is easy for me to learn, right? And journals in particular, they are very much like to publish very good review articles, because journals, same as researchers, they get citations as well. So based on their citations, they get their impact factor higher, right? And then their audience become higher, their ranking also become higher. So that is why journals would be very happy to publish a good literature review or review article, because that will enhance the visibility of the journal as well. So what are the basic differences between the review paper and a research paper? Right? So those are two different review papers and research papers. So in the perspective wise, review paper evaluates previously published literature on a specific topic, right? In terms of a research paper, that is just based on the research findings of particularly one set of authors, right? So that research paper, from the name itself, you can recognize it. Research paper only deals with the research outcomes, research findings, but review paper, the review papers, they are working on the published literature, right? So review paper has existing research data which has been published. Research paper always publishing new findings, new experimental findings, right? Review paper obviously longer than a research paper, right? Obviously longer than a research paper, because research you always describe one research in a research paper, but review paper you have number of researchers, more than 20, 40, 60, 100 research, right? So those are the basic difference. And review article is more than a chapter. So review article and a literature review chapter are not similar, right? Review article and the literature review chapter are not, same, right? In the literature review, you have, it comes as an outcome of your research, right? Research work or thesis. But review article is an outcome of your final draft of the thesis, right? And then remember that review paper is more than annotated bibliographies, right? That's what I told you earlier. It needs new synthesis of data. So to write a review article, a good review article, you need to think critically. That is very important. Thinking critically, thinking logically are two things that Sri Lanka misses, right? That Sri Lankans don't have right now, right? That is why the country has fallen down into this level, because we don't think critically. We don't, we have no logical practice as well, right? But we always talk critically, right? We always talk critically. No, we do. We always criticize others, don't we? We do. We always criticize others, right? But when it comes to science, when it comes to writing science, you don't have that critical, the criticism. You should have it, right? So, in the personal life, if you're being very critical, you always think, oh, that guy has done this thing, why that guy has done this kind of a wrong doing and so on, and you laugh, right? But when it comes to writing science, you need to have the same thing. You need to critically think about the previously published literature. Have the methodology is okay, right? Has they followed a proper method? Has they followed a standard method? Has the number of sample number is fine? Is it standard or not? Right? So these kind of things you have to think critically when you read the literature. Right? When you think critically, then you will be able to find the gap easily. Right? Finding a gap will be very easy if you start thinking critically, right? So always ask yourself, when you read a paper, no matter whose paper that you are reading, even if it can be your own paper that you are reading, right? Or one of your colleagues' paper that you are reading. Okay? So ask yourself, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses of the things that they have discussed in the paper? What kind of evidence is lacking? Is it conclusive? Or some data are limited, right? Can you add something more to this topic? Then only you will think about, okay, there is this kind of a gap in science. right? So that you can do something differently. So if that, let's say you are reviewing a paper, right? Ask yourself, if you did that research, will you do something differently or not, right? If you would do something different than this particular research, then you can ask questions, why didn't you do this in this way rather doing this, right? Likewise. So reading critically, thinking critically is two main things that you need to develop in yourself, right? It is not only for science, it is good for your personal life, it is good for your professional life as well, right? Being critical is important. There are many people who are being critical but doing nothing. Remember that also, right? But be critical, write critically, read critically, right? Then you will be a good scientist, right? So when you read literature, critically read it, right? So you can ask yourself, okay, what were the research aim of this particular article? So you read the last part of the introduction where the objectives, aims have been discussed. And right away, you can read the conclusion of the same article. Assess by yourself, you know the research aims and objectives. By reading the conclusions, you must be able to tell that, okay, these people have not concentrated about their aims and objectives. So that means the aims and objectives not have been, um, functionalized or not have been properly done in the conclusions. If in the introductory part, you have the end of the introductory section, you have the aims and objectives and the research questions, right? So you need to read the conclusions and see whether these aims, objectives have been achieved or have been answered, right? That is how we read critically. If not, you have to note down that saying, okay, this Vitanage et al. 2024, their objectives are differ from the conclusion. So that means they have not achieved their objectives or they have not explained that properly, right? So presentation is also very important when you write. You write aims and objectives, research questions in the last part of the introduction, and you need to provide answers in the conclusions for those things, right? That is how the conclusion differs from the abstract, right? In the abstract, you are summarizing the whole paper. You have the introductory sentence, you have the objectives, then you have the methodology, then you have the research and discussion part, and then conclusion in the abstract. So it is a summary of your paper. But conclusions is not a summary of your paper. Conclusions should give the answers to your objectives, your research question, your aim, right? So you need to read critically, thinking about, are there any problems with their methodology, right? There can be problems in the methodologies. So you need to read critically, thinking whether is the methodology followed is okay or not. And was it a strong or weak research model, right? If the research has not find something new, the article has not find something new or has not presented something new, then it is a weak research model, right? So you need to think critically whenever you are reading, right? How will research help with your own research? So will this research supports your own research, right? You have to read critically, think critically and read critically. What can you take from it? what needs to be avoided, right? And what would you do differently from this paper? So then only you can start thinking about your own review, right? If you have a title, then you have to search and keep searching, right? Because of the AI, now you don't search much, but keep searching because you will understand how to search by keywords when you start doing the search, right? So it's very important. Whenever you start thinking of your own work, so now you have gone through the literature review, you know who are the key players in the field, right? And then what are the main ideas, the debates, or what are the emerging topics in my field, right? Have they start changing the ideas over time, right? In some, subjects, you have things changing quite, regularly, like cancer research, right? Things are changing very fast, right? Climate change research, right? Things are changing fast. And then, these kind of things you have to think whenever you are thinking about your own research, right? So whenever you start writing your review article, you need to think about the instructions that are being generally given by the journals, right? What are the general guidelines given? You need to have the title, authors list, affiliations, corresponding author, right? Then abstract, keywords, right? So those are being the instruction of authors. Double line spacing, page numbering, line numbering, right? So these are being given as instruction for authors. The word limit for the abstract, right? So these things you have to read, right? And then start with a brief overview of the topic. In the introduction, whether it is a research article or a review article, write only 4 paragraphs, right? One paragraph is half a page. So 4 paragraphs means 2 pages, right? Write 2 pages only in double line spacing. Whether it is introduction of the research article or a review article, write only 2 pages as the introduction. Start 4 paragraphs. First paragraph, the general overview, the brief background, right? Second paragraph, enter into the subject. What has been done in the past? What have they found? What are the highest, number, mean, average? Those things you have to discuss in the second. In the third, you are saying existing stuff, existing things to, solve that problem. And then you identifying the gap, give the justification, give the objectives in the last paragraph. So 4 paragraphs, you are done with the introduction. But write critical discussion. It is very important, right? So you have the introduction ready, then you have the body of writing all these, what have they found, and you're comparing, contrasting all these things. Then finally, you have to suggest for future research. So write a section about challenges, limitations, and perspectives for future, right? Before your conclusion comes. In the conclusion, remember, you have an objective even you are writing a review article. Remember that. Objective is not only for research articles. Objective should be there for review articles as well. Identify the gap. Say that there have been, reviews, few reviews exist, but not based, not specifically in this topic. Then you justify. That is why this review is very important. Justification should be very important, right? So that the conclusion section, you will give the answers to your objective or whatever the research questions that you have, right? Spend time on creating a good title, good abstract, and good keywords. That is very important because your abstract is the advertisement of your article. Whether it is research or review article, abstract is the advertisement of your article. By reading the abstract, people think of reading the rest of your article or cite your article or not citing, right? So it should be clear, concise, accurate, and informative. Title, abstract, and keywords should be clear, should be accurate, concise, and informative. Remember those things, okay? Then you can, write the review. You can ask a friend or colleague to read your manuscript and give some feedback. Check the spelling, grammar, all these things. Now it is very easy because you have now softwares to correct spelling and grammar. Don't use AI to do the writing. Writing should be done by you, right? I'm sure it will not be very late for journals to come up with a AI writing identification, right? Now it has similarity. So when a paper comes to me as the editor, I get a full evaluation, full assessment as assessment saying how much similarity is there, right? So likewise, the AI writing percentage would be given sooner. So that don't let AI to write by yourself. If you start writing by yourself, you will definitely able to succeed. It is true that we are not very perfect in English, but what you need to do is copy the style. Copy the style. Copy the structure. Don't copy the whole sentence. Copy the style of writing, the sentence structure, writing style, writing pattern. Copy those things, not the sentence, right? And then, there are so many so many types of, somebody has written on the screen. Can, this be deleted, please? There are so many papers that has been published in different journals about writing review articles, right? You can read those papers. Those are giving very good ideas to you. And whenever you are reading, read the most recent ones. Because in scientific writing also, we are evolving. When I published my first paper, we didn't have graphical abstracts, we didn't have highlights to be written, right? Not like that, right? But now we have graphical abstract to be presented, highlights to be presented, and many more. So read new articles about scientific writing, right? So a review, we know that literature is telling a story, right? Literature is telling a story to us. So we need to start it in a sequence, right? To make it a story, right? That is very important. So what is your story? Before deciding write a review article, you need to ask some questions from yourself. Do I know this stuff sufficiently? Do I know this stuff sufficiently? Right? So that means that it is hard for you to write a review article on something you don't know. if you really need to do something like that, get some of the high caliber personals from that particular subject area. Just like what I did when I transforming my, research areas. First, I did groundwater modeling. Then I changed my research into biochar. So first I took some biochar experts to work with me. Oh, I worked with them so that I understood, how this is working. So I got experience, right? So that is how why I start doing research on biochar and then start publishing reviews on biochar, right? So you need some time to adjust into the new area and then start doing it. So if you are very familiar, if you think that confidently that you know about this stuff, then you can start writing a review article. And whenever you start writing, have a vague idea about which journal that you would target this review for. How do you have it like? How do before starting before the start of writing, how do you think of a journal? It's very easy. You are reading number of papers, right, to write a review article. So these papers have already been published. So you know the details of the journals that have been published, right? Whether those have been published in good quality journals, low quality journals, high impact journals, how many citations received, and so on, right? So by having an idea about the journals that had published this work previously, then you will have an automatic idea saying, okay, my review we can publish, we can try to publish in this particular journal, right? That is how you do. First things first, right? First thing should be first. You need to find a good topic. So how do you find a good topic? You really need to find a good topic, emerging topic for the future. If you have a good emerging kind of a topic for a review, then you will definitely have a large number of citations for your review article, right? So whenever you think of writing a review article, read many articles and think of the next step of this particular research area, right? So if you have some experience, you will definitely easily identify those things, right? So find a good topic. That is how I change my, pathway from one pollutant to another one to another one. How? I read quite a lot. When I start reading papers published, very recently, then I felt like, okay, biochar work has been saturated kind of now. Now, microplastic research are being emerging. So right away, I moved into microplastics, right? So that is why I'm telling you have to read. If you are not a good reader, then it will be very hard for you to write a review article. So find a good topic is the very first one. And do a thorough literature search. At least 100 papers, right? At least 100 papers. There are some journals, they publish reviews only, like chemical reviews as an example, right? Some of the articles, review articles that they have over 1,000 citations, over 1,000 citations, right? So that means what? So these are big review, big journals like, chemical reviews is having a very high impact factor, right? So to publish in that kind of a caliber, you really need to read a lot, right? Read top quality papers. Quality, you know how to understand the quality, right? So quality is, you have recognized publishers, Elsevier, right? Villay Interscience, CRC Press, Springer, right? You have some Nature, right? And then some societies, right? Like International Water Association, IWA. Likewise, there are groups, right? And then create analysis, bibliometric or data, right? What does that means? You need to table the data. You can have a tabulated data, and then you can draw a bar chart, right? Or you can do a bibliometric analysis, right? So you need to improve your way of thinking and writing as well. And then prepare graphics and tables. If you prepare your graphics and tables first, then the writing is very easy, right? What I do is, if I get like 3 days, 4 days break, I start thinking about, okay, I must write a review article on this topic. Then the very first thing that I do is preparing tables and figures, right? So I try to think about new figures, new tables. Then only I have an idea about the story, right? Then only I have an idea about the story. So how to choose a good topic? So it should be emerging topic in the field of science. Emerging topic in the field of science. Don't take Einstein's level of, like that age of topics. Because now the science has been developed so far and you have enough topics to be found, right? And then write a catchy title, right? Prepare the contents. Prepare the contents. So this is a graph for me to show that where is the time, what is the time for writing a review article, right? So the x-axis is amount of review articles. Y-axis is amount of published research. So if the published research is less, the amount of review articles is less, right? If the amount of published research is high, then there is definitely a need of a review article, right? There can be, review articles can be a lot, but research might be less. So just like microplastics, right? There are so many reviews coming up for microplastics rather than research, right? So likewise, you can understand the graphic of this particular slide saying the need of the reviews, right? Where you should plan your review article, right? Think critically, okay? And then you have different types of reviews. So then how do you get started, right? How do you get started? You need to plan the review, right? You need to plan the review. So how do you plan the review? Write a content page. Write a content page so that you know, okay, this particular title, you have 3 subtitles. Next title, you have no subtitles, right? Likewise, have a plan. And in that plan, you can mention about, okay, for this particular section where I have 3 subtopics, I might write 2000 words. And the next section where I don't have any subtopic, I might write 500 words. So likewise, have a plan. For which part you will put a table, for which part you will put a figure. So if you have this kind of a design or sketch, then it will be very easy for you to start writing. Then you can search key literature. Whenever you are searching literature, try to take articles only, have a standard quality. We know the publishers of standard qualities, Elsevier, Springer, CRC, likewise. So have that groups in your mind when you search, right? So in a literature review or in a review article, at least 50 or more than 50 citations should be there, references should be there, right? You can search by keywords, right? Go for high index journals. Go for high index journal. Sometimes they might like it, right? So you will have a chance. So first time, focus on the high index journal. So how to review the literature? Just obviously you have to read the published work. But whenever you are reading the published work, have an Excel sheet ready, enter the data, right? So you are reading my article and you find out, okay, these are interesting data. So you put the data into a separate column and say, these data are important because this has this relationship. When something is given, the result is becoming very high, right? Likewise. And then synthesis means tabulating figures and all, right? So when you do the reading, do mind mapping, right? Do mind mapping. Jot down ideas into your Excel sheet. Put a remarks column and say, all these have been highlighted, but this is some kind of remarks, right? And when you have the contents, if, you have to find the flow. So move them around and have a good flow, right? So all what you do is you are trying to sell your work to people to cite, right? So for that, you need a good flow, good, concentration of the reader, right? So those are important. So you need to think about these things. Then we discuss about reading critically and thinking critically. Then these are some of the tips. For a title, don't write more than 12 words or 15 words. Don't write more than 12 or 15 words. The word limit should be 7 to 14, 15 for a title. Right? Abstract, you have given a abstract guidelines. And interpretations, abbreviations, all these you have to develop by your own. So writing the review. Start with an overview, as I mentioned earlier. You have 4 paragraphs. Start with an overview, right? And then you have the content page that you have written. So start filling into each of these topics. Start filling into each of these topics. And then have separate paragraphs, right? And I have clearly seen in the recent past, many people write so scientific writing, they have sometimes one sentence as a paragraph. I don't like that way, At least to be a paragraph, you need to have one introductory sentence, body, and one concluding sentence. At least 3 you need, right? So when you write a paragraph, have at least more than 5 sentences. So that's important. So don't write 1 sentence, 2 sentences as a separate paragraph. And use subheadings, right? So that the reader will have a flow in his mind, right? So clarity is very important whenever you are writing reviews. Not only reviews, even for research papers, clarity is very important. So clear writing tips are given here. Introduction should be very clear, right? Overview, existing literature, the highlights, and then gap, research question, aim and objectives. right? So this particular structure will be very beneficial when you write. Clear paragraph structure. For a paragraph, you need to have an introductory sentence, then the body that you are discussing about the introductory part, and then a closing remark, right? Each paragraph should have this. Each paragraph should have kind of an introductory sentence, body, discuss all these, things that you want to discuss about that, the introduction that you meant to, and then a concluding remark, right? That particular concluding remark should be aligned with the introductory part of the next paragraph, right? So it should have a nice flow. If you don't have that flow, the reviewer is like a reader, right? Who would be happy to read your article and you read your manuscript and give good comments. It can be positive comment, it can be negative comments, right? But those comments are given to improve your work, right? So don't be angry with the reviewer. Don't think that reviewer is always, trying to harass you, trying to give, trying to negative you, make you negative. No, reviewer, think positively about the reviewer. Reviewer is a person who is reading your article and giving comments as a third person, right? Comments as a third person. So he or she is pointing out what he thinks that is lacking in your article, right? Take it positively. Take it very positively and improve your work. Even though your paper is being rejected, so the reviewer has given some important ideas for you to improve, right? So improve the work. That is very important. And make sure the subject of your sentence is clear. The grammar, right? Grammar part, the subject, object, these should be clear, right? Don't assume knowledge, right? In scientific writing, you don't have assuming and writing, right? Everything that you are writing should be evidence-based. Everything that you are writing should be evidence-based, right? So I would not tell anything without an evidence, right? If there is an evidence, then I would say this is wrong. Don't do it. And that evidence can change. That is science, right? Science evolves, right? Things change. So don't assume and write. Write based on the evidence, right? So that is why whenever you are writing a sentence, you always put a citation or reference at the end, right? Because whatever you have written is evidence-based. So it has a weight, right? And then make sure key terminology is there. So don't combine sentences with and so on, right? Don't combine sentences. One sentence per one idea. One sentence per one idea. Don't mix up sentences and make it too long, right? So have short sentences, 12 words maximum or 15 words maximum for a sentence. So it's very clear, short and sweet, right? So these are tips for you to write, improve your writing, right? And then be objective and balanced. Don't be biased, right? Don't be biased. So, some people are, banging me because I'm not talking on behalf of something, right? I'm not talking on behalf of a political party, right? I'm not talking on behalf of my colleague, right? So people are shouting at me. But I don't do it because I don't want to be biased. right? I should be balanced, right? I should be balanced. Everybody should have a balanced view, right? So be objective and balanced. So those are some of the tips that I wanted to give you. And then your critical voice is very important, right? Signpost, right? By being critical, right? You are mentioning, things with a statement saying, however. So when you put the word however, that signposts something else, right? So, you are writing about something and saying, however, that means, or you are going to show something which is not present in the previous part, right? Yet, moreover, instead, right? Similarly, likewise, there are many words that you can use for signposting, right? Use them, right? Whenever you are writing, use them. I would say, right? Vitanage et al. Demonstrated that microplastics have been present in, drinking water sources in Sri Lanka. However, right? However, then the reader thinks, okay, she is going to say something different in the next segment, right? So use those words to signpost. Paragraphs and flow, as I already mentioned, paragraph should have topic sentence, discussion of the topic, and then closing sentence, right? Each paragraph should have this. So if you are writing two sentences paragraph, then something is missing, right? So always try to have more than five sentences per paragraph. So in my case, most of the time in my work, paragraph is half a page. Don't have like lengthy paragraphs. That is also not good, right? So half a page, then a person would read half a page, then he or she has a break and going into a new idea in the next paragraph. So likewise, have yourself trained in writing. Just think, what would you like to read? Right? Everybody would like to read something short and sweet and something not that complex, something without big, terms like jargons, right? That, we would like to have some examples, some quantitative data showing that this level is being recorded in the environment. Then we get an idea, oh, okay, this level is being recorded in the environment, but not this much, right? Likewise, right? And thematic and grammatical links, all these things should be there. So those are tips. And have these kind of illustrating trends. So graphics and tables are very important in writing, even in review articles. So these two are one of my graphs that I prepared for one of my review articles, right? So these kind of graphs are showing things critically, right? So you can clearly see that there is a lower line. All right. So lower line means not many papers have been published, right? So that gives you an idea, okay, if I do a research in that particular area, that would be better, publishable, because not many people work on that, right? And even you can write a review article on that, because not many people have worked means not many reviews have gone, right? So think about these kind of graphics. Bibliometrics. I know that you have had a bibliometric analysis workshop earlier or might be having soon. So bibliometric analysis give you an idea about what has been happening, what kind of keywords are there, what kind of countries have been working on, right? So this is one very recent bibliometric analysis that one of our students did. So these kind of interactions you can show from bibliometric analysis, right? So this is a new trend, right? So we are talking about the trends today. Na? One new trend is having a bibliometric analysis in your review article, so that people would understand, oh my gosh, this many papers, this many combination of keywords, right? So here the blue color means that particular set of keywords, right? Yellow color means those are having separate set of keywords, right? So each different color means that you have, in this case, year wise, right? Blue color means 2010. Dark green color means 2012. So depending on the, time frame that you are showing, these are the research that has been done. So that's a good analysis. So if you can do a bibliometric analysis, that will be a value add to your review, right? And then tips for generating illustrations. So whenever you have illustrations, remember, if you have a graphic, if you have a graph, you have a caption, right? So always remember this graph is most of the time self-representing, standing alone, right? If that graph is standing alone, you have to write a clear caption. And that caption may be long, two, 3 sentences long maybe. That is fine. Always have described everything that is being shown by the graph in the caption. And graph and the caption always should come below the citation in the text, right? If I'm saying figure 1 in the text, so after figure 1 citation, only the graph and the figure and the citation should come, right? So always have a good caption, lengthy, descriptive caption, right? And figure should be very clear. Even it should be clear to black and white prints. So don't just have colors, because when it printed in black and white, there can be no value, right? So in that case, have some designs, right? So these are very basic information, but I wanted to give you because these are the things that I see always, missing in papers, right? So a good review article discusses new developments of methods and results, right? A good review article discuss new developments of a method or result, right? Have few figures, few tables, new ones, right? Not previously published figures or tables, new ones that you have synthesized, right? So if you are working on 25 papers for a review article, you would have 25 data sets, right? So those data sets you can summarize into a table. So that is a new table. So that kind of one, you have to do it. So please understand that scientific writing has no shortcuts, right? People think, people copy paste from papers, right? Similarity index become high. And people use AI. So, even now we can test whether this particular paragraph has been generated by AI or not. So no shortcuts in science. Don't ever try to have shortcuts in science, right? Try to put your effort, right? Then only you will develop yourself, right? transition sentences, right? Transition sentences from paragraph to paragraph. Whenever you are discussing one article to another, right? Always, when, I have seen when I read review articles, review manuscript written by people, you start from Vitanage Ettel has done this and that. Don't write like that. Explain what has been found and always put the reference at the end of the sentence, right? If it is very unavoidable, then you can have Vitanage Ettel has done this. That's fine. But majority, you should have the reference at the end of the sentence, right? And I have seen this also as a negative point in reviews. Some have a full paragraph regarding one paper. So they are describing, the things that have been done by Vitanage et al. In 2024. Right? So they are writing a whole paragraph about that paper. No need. Don't write a whole paragraph about what others have done. Right? So that is mere reporting. What you should do is write 1 or 2 sentences about a study that has been published already, but the most important finding of that study. And then compare that with another study. Right? Don't write a whole paragraph about, what have they done? They have done this way, they have done that way, and they have found out this result. No need. Only the most highlighted part of the work that has been done, right? And always consist your thoughts into the writing. So you are discussing, okay, there have been research done on finding, these things. But then you add your own sentence saying, this is good that what they have done, but they have not done this particular thing. Right? So you are finding something that they have not done. Or you are trying to write something that very, they have found out a good thing that you think. So you're highlighting that point. So always try to add your thoughts, your insights, your perspectives in a narrative manner, right? So that the reader will understand, oh, wow, so this has been nicely written. And you can even learn many things, right? By reading that kind of a paper. So that is important, right? And remember, do not repeat the same pattern in writing, right? Some people have the same, pattern, same type of words, showed, described, right? So same pattern, same word in many sentences. Don't do that. There are so many different terms for each, for the same meaning. So you can say showed, you can say observed, you can say demonstrated, you can say described, and many more. So don't have the same pattern. So the reader gets boring to read, right? And then whatever you do, edit few times and do few times proofreading, right? Few times editing, few times proofreading. Because whenever you are writing something, it will automatically go into your head. You won't see any mistakes, even though you read it many times. So ask somebody else to read. Or just keep it 1 day aside and then read the next day. Then your mind is fresh a little bit and then you will find mistakes, right? So editing, proofreading is very important. Two different things, but very important in writing. And then learn from models, right? Whenever you are reading, you will find out, oh, this particular review is very good one. So I would like to have, write similar kind of a review. So that is a model for you. Keep that model for you and, copy the structure. Copy the structure, copy how they have written, copy how they have compared, copy how they have made figures, right? Learn from models. That is very important. And so many different types of reviews. I'm not going to go into details of each of the review. Different types are there. So you can even, get these slides from me or from the Library Association, and you can learn how many different types of reviews are there, what kind of description what are their, the role, how they are being different from each other and so on. Okay. So as an example, critical reviews. Very common type of review is critical reviews or, these kind of state-of-the-art reviews, right? So they are just, narratively described, but in critical manner, right? Then you have meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is also a type of reviewing, but it involves always statistics. It involves statistics. So meta-analysis means a statistical method, right? So for you to do a meta-analysis, you need to do systematic review. So normally systematic review comes with meta-analysis, right? And then overviews. In some cases, they publish overviews, right? In these overviews, it is very general idea about the subject, but those are not very promising in publishing, right? And then rapid reviews. When something is emerging quickly, then you will have rapid reviews, like in the case of COVID. Then state-of-the-art reviews, right? State-of-the-art reviews, very similar to critical reviews, very common. And then systematic review, same. And umbrella reviews means you have many, you are reviewing reviews. You are reviewing reviews, right? So finally, the take-home message, you have to decide on an emerging topic. If you are writing a review article, you need to decide on an emerging topic, right? And go through a thorough review. You need to read thoroughly few papers, at least 25 plus, right? In my case, normally 70 papers, right? Less than 100, but more than 60 for sure. And provide a comprehensive understanding of a given topic. When you call this comprehensive understanding of a given topic, it contains positives, negatives, everything. SWOT analysis of a given topic, right? So you are not biased. You are discussing about a topic. You are giving a comprehensive understanding, thinking, delivering the positives, strengths, monada. Then weaknesses, monada, right? Weaknesses, strengths, positives, negatives, everything, right? So that is how you balance your review, right? Provide a comprehensive understanding. And then balanced perspective. Perspective should be given to the future. So because you have gone through 25 plus papers, you know what has been done. You know what has not been done. So those things you can highlight in the future perspective part, saying these things have not studied much and better people study in the future, right? So that will be very interesting and you will have a lot of citations because of these kind of future perspective sections, because many students, many practitioners would read that part. then they would understand, oh, I can do something like this. So they have identified this as a gap, right, for the future so that I can start it. Likewise. And then reporting the summary, not the script. So that is why I mentioned don't report a whole paragraph of one side. Report the summary, very much, highlight of the previous work and discuss. Discuss from your own thoughts, right? And good review paper author, right? Good review paper author is more than simply a reporter, right? If you are a reporter only, then you will have just what have been done by this group and that group and so on. But if you are a good reviewer, you would say, however, this and that, yet, and then moreover, this, and likewise, right? So you will be more than simply a reporter. You will be a critical analyst, right? Critical analyst. From your critical writing, critical reading, critical thinking, it comes, right? So that's all I wanted to mention in this lecture today. I hope it is clear enough for you. You can ask any questions if you have. I hope it is clear.
Yes, thank you very much, madam. Thank you for your very informative insight on review articles. So now it's time for questions and clarify your doubts. So I would like to invite all the participants, if you have any doubts and questions regarding on today's topic, please feel free to ask from our Madam Professor Metrika.
Looks like no questions. I only, saying that's good.
There were some questions in the chat box.
Yeah, there are no questions. They are saying this is good.
No, there were two questions. Yes.
Okay. I found one. Could you please elaborate on how to choose the right balance between depth and breadth of the in a review article? Yes. Are there specific criteria or guidelines you recommend? So that is why I always mentioned, whatever the depth, whatever the breadth that you are thinking should be looking into one or two sentences of each paper, right? Depth in the sense depend on the title that you have, right? So if you want really to go into deep on some topic, that might not have an interest of many readers. So try to have not too general, but not too specific, right? So it is always with the 50% balance comes. So not too general, not too specific, should be in the middle, right? Are there specific criteria? How can we handle potential bias in my review article? Yeah, it is very hard, but because you are always biased to your own idea, that is true. But you always need to think about the people who have done that particular work. We can easily criticize, that is true. But still, that has been an effort. We had to recognize that effort from the authors that has been already published article, but you need to critically write in a way that not saying whatever they have done is bad, but indicating the reviewer that they should have done something else as well. They should have done it in a different methodological perspective and so on. So I hope I answered that question. If not, please ask any questions. I think Kasuni has a question. Raise the question, please.
Yes, madam. Madam, my questioning is about the keyword analysis.
Yeah.
In some review articles, I have seen that there's a figure, certain diagram explaining the keyword analysis, like this many articles were selected first,
Yeah.
and this many articles were considered in the end. Can you please elaborate a little bit on
Yeah,
that?
so that keyword analysis, Kasuni, is coming from two things. One is you can do a bibliometric analysis using keywords, right? The thing that you mentioned is a systematic review. So in a systematic review, they take like 20, less than 50, but more than 20 papers. So they refine the papers, the number based on the keyword analysis, right? So that is what is called systematic review. So those are statistical analytical work. So we need to understand the statistics behind to do systematic analysis. If we don't have that capacity, you can go with the bibliometric analysis. No harm, right? But
Thank
if
you,
you
madam.
want to do the systematic review, you can get an advice from a statistician and follow the way that they have done. It is not that hard. You can even find many videos in the internet to do meta-analysis and systematic reviews as well, so that you will understand how to refine the number of papers based on the keywords.
Yeah, thank you, madam.
You're welcome.
Madam,
Yes.
Madam, if we take bibliometric analysis, which type of database you recommend?
Scopus or Clarivate, Web of Science. So Web of Science or Scopus are the best. Otherwise, Google Scholar is okay, but it's a bit hard for you to get from Google Scholar, because there can be some articles that are not, like sometimes abstracts have been inside the Google Scholar and so on. So the best is Scopus and Web of Science. So we don't have Web of Science access for many Sri Lankans though, but Scopus access is there for, I think, in some universities. Not the University of Sri Jagadhanapura right now, I guess. Maybe Nayana will tell you, because we are now, the whole country is under, financial depression, right? So that is why, otherwise we had the access. University of Kelaniya had access. First, National Science Foundation had access. Now, I don't know where we have access. But if you really need the access, you can be a reviewer for Scopus, LCBA. If you being a reviewer, you will have 30 days of free access to Scopus. So that is one way that I did when I didn't have access. Now being an editor, I have access to almost all, and then from UWA, I have access to almost all the publishers. But when I didn't have the access, what I did was I reviewed an article, and then I get the access for 30 days. So that is what some researchers are doing. So that is possible if you can do that kind of a review and get the access. Otherwise, you need access from somewhere.
Thank you, Madam.
Sure, welcome. Any other questions?
Madam, there are other questions in the chat box. Says, in a previous advice about paragraphs being around half a page long, were you referring to a length during the drafting stage or final published version in the journal?
A drafting stage. It is the A4 sheet, half a paragraph. A paragraph means half a page. So that is my way. You can have your own way. It depends on the way that you are writing. So I really would like to have 4 paragraphs in the introduction, and then half a page each of these paragraphs then it is very easy for the reader. It's not boring, because if you have a long paragraph, then it is very boring. So, being a reader, think you are being a reader when you start writing your own paper. Then you would see, right, yes, this is lengthy, this sentence is too lengthy, then I can't, concentrate, and I forget the beginning when I read the end and so on. So being the reader, thinking you as the reader, when you write, you will improve yourself a lot. One is asking, Madam, is it always needed a corresponding author to publish a review article to a journal? I'm still an undergraduate. Can I work on my own? Yeah, you can work on your own, but it is better if you have some kind of a mentor, right? Because corresponding author does not mean that you as the undergraduate cannot be a corresponding author. You can be a corresponding author. Corresponding author means that the person who deals with the journal. That's all that meaning. But if you have a senior author, that would be beneficial for you to even get some connections and understanding about the journal processing time, which journal is better, which journal is good, because in journals, thousands of journals now. So you have like some journals are very good, but the publication time is very long, right? So we don't like, right? We like our paper to publish fast. So some journals are not that great, but the publishing time is very fast. So I will compromise with those two. So senior author or mentor is always better to have. So if you feel like, there are no people who would like to, supervise you or mentor you, or they don't like to do it, then you can write to somebody else in the, in another country and ask whether he or she can be a mentor to you. So that is possible. But I always think it is better to have a mentor. So even now, even being at this level, I have mentors. So I talk to some people and then get ideas about journals, ideas about new, additions into papers, new techniques of analysis into papers. So don't be afraid or, be shy to have a mentor. Even you are old, I'm also close to 50, but still I have mentors. So, I don't mind. I always try to learn something from somebody. I even learn from undergraduates, right? Because, undergraduates now, they are very competent in all these technical stuff, especially computer, GIS, modeling, whatever, right? Languages, computer languages, Java, Python and so on, writing scripts from Python and so on. And even some of my students, they are very competent in graphics. So I learned from them. So don't be shy, don't be upset to learn from somebody. Be humble, because you are trying to improve yourself. So you need to go into the ground level to improve yourself. If you want to improve yourself, you can be success, right? If you don't want to improve yourself, then you will be like with low self-esteem, thinking, oh, that guy is trying to beat me and so on. Then that is not really good for you. So always try to have a mentor, try to have a supervisor, try to have a collaborator. That would be very beneficial to your caliber. One is asking, sometimes I feel like getting into a rabbit hole with so many references. Yes. When you write a sentence, if you are putting references, try to have 1 or 2 references at the maximum. If you can't avoid, go up to 4. Don't go beyond that, right? Maximum 4, but not always, right? Like 2 times a paper, kind of. So many references you don't need to deal with. So that is why that kind of systematic, refining should happen at that time. And also, when you consider references, think about the most recent references, last 2-3 years, right? Especially in writing a review, you need to have very recent references. That means you have updated knowledge. If you have very old references, then you have outdated knowledge. You are writing about outdated knowledge. That is not avoidable. You can have references in 1990s, 1900 and so on, but not frequently. At least 80% of your references should be within last 2-3 years. Okay. And then one more, if we database I have answered. Okay. All right. That's all. I can share my presentation with the Library Association. And if you have any way to send it around, you can send it. There is no problem. But these presentations, you don't need to go through and memorize. You can just start working on, start writing your article, start writing an abstract, start writing an introduction. Then you will start learning, right? If you are not into writing, then it is very hard, by going through my lecture notes or slides, you won't get anything, right? So the practice you should have. From that practice, you can learn these things. So most of these things, the tips that I mentioned, I learned by myself by practicing and by looking at model papers. So that is how I did. Like I looked at model papers and I write sentences in the same structure wise. So that is the easiest way. Okay, but not copying the sentence, but copying the structure of the sentence or some maybe nice terms. Okay. Looks like those are the questions. One last one, somebody's Prema Latha is asking, I just started my PhD. Can you give me some suggestions? So it is kind of a very broad question. The best suggestion I can give you is do a literature review first. Get the best gap that you have. Take good research questions and start writing a review article so that you will understand the whole process of your PhD research. So that is the first that you should do. And then one is asking again, writing a normal literature review, what are the major components to be considered from the article? Like normal means state-of-the-art review or critical review. So in that case, you have like major components means it depends on your contents. Whatever you do, you have to have contrasting and comparing, compare and contrast way of writing, right? And then, it depends on the subject that you are discussing. So major components that you don't need to read the whole paper, you have to read the abstract, you have to read the conclusion, and if that indicates something important for your own paper, then you can go on read the research and discussion section and get get some data from their tables and so on. You don't need to read the whole paper ever, right? I have not read whole papers unless I have questions or I have issues with to solve. I normally read the abstract, read the conclusion, take the highlight out of it. And if I need to add some data, then I go into the results and discussion section, go see the tables that they have and their discussion a little bit, then get the data and write my interpretation on that. Okay. All right. We can wind it up.
Madam, if you don't have any further questions, let me end the pre-conference webinar. So I kindly invite Mrs. Mudita Ankubura, Senior Assistant Librarian, University of Visual and Performing Arts, to give away the vote of thanks. Mrs. Mudita, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Madhushan. Actually, I am very much honored to have the opportunity to express our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Mettika Vitanage, our esteemed resource person today, to delivering an insightful and inspiring webinar on crafting impactful review articles, tips, pitfalls, and the trends. Professor Vitanage, your experience and passion for scholarly writing have greatly incited to your presentation today. We are grateful for the time and effort you have invested for this event and for your generosity in sharing your knowledge and experience with us. On behalf of the organizing committee and all the participants, I extend our sincere thanks to you, Professor. At the same time, I am very much thankful to Dr. Naina Vijayasundara, who presented the citation of the resource person, and Mr. Madhushan, moderator of the session, ICULA President, Secretary, Conference Organizing Committee, Webinar Organizing Committee, and all the participants who joined with the today's session. I hope at the last I will invite you all to join with the next webinar on 30th of July. Thank you again, Madam.
Thank you very much. And I would expect you to perform, well and start writing reviews and bravo. Thank you.